Hello, how are you?
Very well, how are you?
All right. Yeah, so I'm looking at the number of people that are in the room. I hope you don't mind. Let's try and pause and see if people will join in by 5:10. I don't know if we are reaching there.
Okay, no.
Yeah, let's start at 17:10. So I'll just briefly mute. You can talk. I'll join you after in the next 6 minutes, I guess.
Okay.
So actually, you know what? I've changed my mind here. As we wait for the others, I'm curious. And there's probably, this was probably going to be discussed somewhere towards the end, but I'm wondering, are there any concerns with the course so far? Things that you're struggling with?
The assignments, sir.
What assignments, Ms. Mapama?
Hmm?
What assignments? What do you mean by assignments? What's wrong with assignments?
For me,
And
it's
how many
just
assignments are there? This is 3 of them. These are group-based. In fact, if you were to, you would soon realize that once we start looking at cost estimation, this won't work really. One would assume that if it's 3 assignments and you have 3 people in the group, you're looking at everybody putting in about 0.6 worth of the load, right? So
but for
what
us,
about your assignment?
case only like 2 people who are in who are
Thank
active.
you. Thank you very much. And I'm so happy that I left it on to you people to decide who exactly you wanted to work with. Did not prescribe who you wanted to work with. You chose, right? You chose. And I don't know if you even reflected on who you're going to work with, but you decided on your own. You decided, and I can't remember who you're working with. You went at home and you told yourself, I'm going to work with this person, right? I didn't impose those people. So that is a problem you're going to have to fix. And unfortunately for you and everybody else who's struggling with people, we have a discussion on people management and teamwork. At some stage in life, right, you have to make serious decisions. In the real world, people get fired, right? You get fired if you're not working. That's what happens. I've seen it happen for capstone projects. You're cast out, you become an outcast. Your group members will approach the supervisor and tell him to say, this person is not working, we do not want him to be a part of the project. And that's it, right? You come back the following year. Hopefully, right? Hopefully this whole experience is a sneak preview of what's coming your way in ICT 4014, the capstone project, which, by the way, is much more serious than what we're doing right now. So I'm so sorry, but I can't help with that problem. People management, you have to figure out exactly how you're going to fix that problem. I'm sorry.
But like the people who are good were already taken.
Terrible.
And
Yes,
then we
what
had
about the,
what to be with the unserious ones.
sorry, you had what?
So I'll just like to add, no
Yes.
offense, Dr. Piri, but earlier you said we went home and we chose who we wanted to work with, but we actually chose our partners and our team members in school. And then also, I guess at that time we did know that schools would close and people would be like in farms where there's no network and stuff, you know.
No, come on. Let's be honest here, right?
Correct.
Let's be serious here. You honest, MTN has rated access to the LMS, right? And let's be honest here. Do you mean to tell me that that you have certain group members that are completely out of touch with you because they are staying in places where there's no network?
Yes.
Who?
Yes, sir.
Musa, I haven't seen Musa since we closed, sir.
What? Simfukwe?
Yes.
What are you talking about? Simfukwe joined us in the previous interaction we had. That's a lie.
And
When else?
Mushinga.
Well, I mean, Mushinka has been in touch via email. I don't know. And in fact, this is the thing. I don't know why you're bringing up Christopher's name here. Last I checked, there is no project where Kashinka is associated with, right? So I don't know what you're... Are you talking about Mushinka, right? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't know about that anyway. You'd have to fix that. This is strange. Kashinka, Mushinka, they're both Christophers. But this is very weird. I don't have... answers to those issues here. You're gonna have to figure it out yourself, unfortunately. You know, you have to at least try. You know, even if you don't have, you are at a place where there's no internet connectivity or there's a lot of load shedding, you at least make an attempt, right? All right, so we have 9 people, whatever that means, I don't know. So we're going to proceed. Ms. Mapoma, I'm going to ask you to mute your microphone. There's a bit of echo coming out of there. And just to let you know that the session is recorded, obviously, not that it matters. Welcome, Matthews. But so I thought we'll just quickly walk through these things. I won't waste a lot of your time. I won't waste my time as well because I have another engagement. But I thought I would just emphasize the importance of instructions, right? Because this thing seems to be coming up over and over again in the mailing list. And then I'll remind us on some of the things that have been shared so far. By way of the screencasts and the notes, actually, even though the screencasts are still coming your way, obviously. And then I'd love to hear your thoughts on the resources that have been shared so far. Do you want more information? Is that information adequate? Do you want more resources? We can provide more resources, actually. And then I'll give us a rundown of what's pending so far in lecture series number 3. We're almost there. We're almost done. But before that, I'll give you guys an opportunity to just ask questions associated with the most recent screencasts and notes, if you have questions and if you need clarification and whatnot. And I guess we can also ask questions related to the project, right? The assignment, rather, during this very session, right? All right. As always, as usual, if you want to interrupt me, just feel free to unmute your mic and interrupt me, right? You probably want to avoid typing questions in the chat because I won't have the time to constantly check the chat. Yeah, these are people that don't listen. Do you see this thing from? I should share my screen here. Why is Mtinta logging in with her personal account? This is the problem here, right? Right. So you want to avoid typing the questions in here because I won't have time to check in the chat. But if you don't have a microphone and you're unable to do this, hopefully someone in the chat room will read your question and then they'll ask it on your behalf, right? So feel free to unmute and ask or interrupt if you want to. Great. All right, so this is the thing here, right? I find it very strange and odd that someone would brazenly send out an email and claim that we didn't know that we needed to use Slack, so we decided to use Facebook Messenger. Really? We didn't know, so we decided to use WhatsApp. How are we going to track who is actually putting in effort into the project, the overall success of the project, if you start straying away from the prescribed tools, right? And I'm referring to, is it Harrison and Company? I don't know if it's Harrison and Company or if it's Macmillan and Company. I don't know, I can't remember if they're part of the same group. But I responded to him, Macmillan, and I referred him to assignment number 4, which is in black and white, right? You were told to use Slack. You're told to use Slack for a reason. It's not that hard to follow rules, is it? I mean, you just have to follow the rules. It's not that hard. If you think there's certain aspects of the assignment that don't make sense, you do what the other groups have been doing. Just send out a simple email and ask, could you please clarify on this aspect? We don't seem to understand. It's not that hard, right? You don't make up things. So the other reason, by the way, the other reason why things have to be done like this is because it becomes much easier to subject or to objectively grade the assessment because we know that we are exposing everybody to the same things. So if you're one of those groups who has decided to start interacting outside of the prescribed tools, you're probably going to lose marks. So to avoid losing additional marks, you probably want to revert to Slack. If you can use Facebook Messenger, if you can use WhatsApp, there's nothing stopping you from using Slack. Or is there? Is there anything challenging about Slack? You have to look at the bigger picture here, right? It turns out, right, that when you get out there in the real world, these are the tools that you're going to find. You are never going to find a company that does serious software development that uses WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger to communicate. Never, right? And unless if you're not interested in pursuing a career down that road, then please go ahead and use WhatsApp. Trying to help you get started so that when the time comes for you to get out there into the real world, you at least have a good enough starting point. But you don't want to listen, do you? Well, if all you're interested in is marks, that's fine. Just follow the rules. It's not that hard to follow the rules. And in fact, it's much easier, even much easier, because you're working as a pack. I find it very strange and odd to believe that all 5 people would sit down and discuss and decide to say, we are not going to follow the rules and we're just going to make up things on our own, right? That's worrying because it kind of hints at the fact that you chose or you're part of a group that does not properly reason. I'm sorry to have to say that. What is expected when you're working as part of a group is you discuss these things. And whenever there are important decisions to be made, you need to make those decisions collectively as a group. There are different approaches. You vote, majority wins. You decide to say the decision has to be unanimous. Everybody must agree before you make a decision. This is what you do, even in real life. You just don't do things randomly, right? And this actually ties into an issue that I've been emphasizing over and over again. When you seek clarification, sending an email all by yourself without copying your group is a bad idea. You know why? Because when Lighton responds to you, you know what's going to happen? You're going to distort the message. In fact, you might distort the message by writing to Lighton, but then it makes it a lot easier when you involve other people because they'll be able to correct you and clarify what sort of message you want to convey. Get into the habit of always copying your team members. This is not you alone. You're doing this as part of a group. And I know, these people are always there, right? They know it all, I know it all, so I will do this on my own. Well, it gets even harder, right? Very soon this thing will get complex, which is why you're working as a group. This is not something you can do on your own. Unless if this is the only course that you are doing, maybe you'll be able to work through this project on your own. Right? So really, I mean, I expect better from you guys, especially that you're in 3rd year. And on expecting better from you guys, somebody else randomly comes up and is like, I can't use Google Meets. Can we use Zoom because of connectivity? And really, you're coming up with some really weird reason for why you're unable to use Google Meets when in fact you've just failed to install and configure the application. This is stuff that my 1st year students are able to do without a problem. Right? And in fact, that link I've been pointing to you is a link meant for 1st years. At 3rd year, we expect much, much better from you guys. You've got into a stage where the trivial things are supposed to take you just a few minutes, right? If you're stuck, the least you should do is you use that informal group that you have. I'm told you have a WhatsApp group where you gossip or whatever, right? You have juicy stories or whatever you want to call them. You ask your colleagues in there, right? And they will help you configure Google Meet. This is very disappointing here. But in closing on the importance of instructions again, and I know I already said this, but I'll have to check if people are still there. You will find these rules, right? And I'm serious about people getting fired. You know, and it's not just getting fired. It's also about getting into an organization which is not a perfect fit for you. It turns out that these organizations have certain cultures, informal and formal cultures, right? I know I've interacted with organizations where every Friday you have to go to the pub or something, right? Whether you don't drink or not, you have to go to the pub because it's a way of bonding with the rest of the team. You know, so I'm trying to help you here. This has nothing to do with the marks, although, I mean, as far as UNZA is concerned, I guess it does have something to do with the marks, but in a way, I'm trying to help you so that you become much, much better than what the average person is going to become once they leave UNZA, right? So that you do something meaningful besides that degree that's going to be handed down to you once you graduate. But are there questions with regards to the importance of rules? I guess if you have comments with regards to the rules, before I proceed. I'm done with my rant. Sometimes you have to rant. I'm sure mom and dad rant to you as well. Not mom and dad, but these rants are important because I've realized, right, from the experience that when you rant, it sinks in. People understand the message that you're trying to convey. I hope you understand now. Follow the rules. Here's the thing. In closing, if you want to pass this course, if you don't want what happened in 2034 to happen in 3020, follow the rules. Make sure you work as a group, discuss important things, make decisions collectively as a group. If you don't do that, the thing that happened to you in 2034 is going to happen in this course as well. And it's in black and white. The rules are in black and white, right? You know how the marks are distributed. You know how you're going to be graded, right? So I hope that's clear. We're going to proceed now to the next part, which is just a brief summary of what we looked at, unless if there are questions on my rant. The things that I was just talking about. No? Yes? Are you even there, by the way? Hello?
We are here. We are here.
Oh, okay, right.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, that's great. All right. So I guess I thought I'd just do a reminder, a quick summary of the notes that have been shared. More important, the screencasts that have actually been uploaded so far, right? So we've done two key things with 2 units, although the planning part hasn't yet been finalized. There's still the cost and estimation aspect missing there. And I remember when I did software engineering myself, right? It sounded, it was unlike the other courses I did because it felt like it was a boring course, right? Most of the things we were looking at were, well, at least at the time, at the beginning anyway, they seemed like they were unnecessary, but it turns out for you to implement software within budget, high quality software within budget, within the prescribed time frame, you need to follow these prescribed rules, right? Things that are collectively associated with software engineering. Some things will probably not really come out because the groups that you're working amongst are really small groups, right? If you're developing complex software, you're working as part of large teams, right? The software development team at UNZA, I think, is 20 man strong or something, if I'm not mistaken, right? So the people that develop likes of SIS, for instance, the people that make enhancements to Moodle, right? So these are important things to think about, right? Project management. But anyway, so we started off by just introducing this whole notion of project management. And I think hopefully by now we have an idea of where this all originated from, right? The so-called software crisis of the 1960s. I do hope you've read up a little on that. Very important concept. You pretty much find it in your average classic software engineering textbook, right? So Mythical Man, I think it's probably mentioned in the recommended text that we're using in the course as well, right? So software engineering by Ian Somerville. And then we actually highlighted some key elements or aspects associated with the project, right? And what was important for us here was to look at the fundamental components that comprise of these things we're calling activities associated with the project. Most specifically, we introduced things like, a project has activities. Activities have to be broken down into tasks. A typical task will have time aspects associated with it, duration, start time, and end time, right? Those are important things. And it turns out they're important because they came up when we started looking at planning, specifically scheduling, right? We also discussed key success metrics that are used to judge whether a project was successful or not. Guys, this is extremely important. I hope you've read the chaos report that I shared. This is really important. This thing here is really important, right? This gives you an idea of how important project management is, right? If you have, say, on average, if we're saying only 1% of projects, contemporary projects, are considered successful, then there's a problem here, right? Tells you that project management is extremely important. And of course, we are loosely defining success here. We are saying projects that go beyond the approximate estimated costs are considered unsuccessful, right? They're failed or challenged rather. Projects that go beyond the planned time frame are challenged as well, right? So the things that fall within this 53% are things that perhaps went over budget or went beyond the time. You'll be amazed how many projects go beyond time actually. Here's the thing, sneak preview. Most of the projects you are working on are going to go beyond time. You will not finish. Why? We know, because you're not serious, right? In certain instances, there are other conflicting factors, obviously, that will typically cause a project or result in projects being challenged. Like what Ms. Mapoma was saying, you hire people to be a part of a project, midway through the project, they start resigning, right? They quit. Or they start coming up with funny stories, or we call in sick, right? I'm sick, I can't come in. What's happening is that person is not putting in the required effort. What happens? Timeline is exceeded, right? So these are all important things, and we discover that really it doesn't matter which domain-specific application you're talking about, really the metrics are more or less the same, right? If you look at the banking sector, the government, health, this is a big one here. Government is really usually serious. Quick pause here, right? That thing you're calling the Odell Lab there, and I know it's not a software development project, but it's an IT project. That thing is a challenge project. That thing took 2 years to complete. It took 2 years to commission when it was supposed to be initially, when the people that were awarded the contract were bidding, they said they would finish it in less than a year. When I joined the UNZA, they were still struggling, following up on people that were hired, the consultants that were hired to set up the lab. In fact, if you look at that lab, it's a mess, right? It's garbage. It is a challenge. If I was to classify that thing, actually, it's a failed project, right? But that's besides the point. That is a classic example of something that is closer to home that can be either classified as a challenge project or a failed project. That thing went over budget. They're still paying more money, actually. Calling, licensing fees for whatever garbage software they're using, right? It went beyond time, way beyond time, right? We are in year number 3 now, when the project was supposed to be done in less than a year, and it hasn't yet been commissioned formally, right? So these are things to think about, the importance of project management. Now, if I knew the people that were in charge of that project, I was probably going to ask them to say, did you really do any serious project management? I'm going to pause to see if people are still there here. I've found myself in interactions like this where I'm ranting, I'm talking, and I realize I've lost connection, and I'm talking to myself, but it looks like you're all there. It would be nice if occasionally just one of you could just chime in and contribute. We're supposed to be having a discussion here. It's not a one-way street here, especially at third year, right? Back and forth, where you give us examples of things that you know, right? This is what makes these things more interesting. But anyway, interesting things that we discussed there, right? So key success metrics, we introduced this one notion of the so-called triple constraint, right? Quality, time, cost, right? Although we realize that these days, right? If you look at, is it PMBOK or something, or is it Project Management Institute? Can't remember here. The additional aspects that you've introduced to try and measure the relative success of the project. So you look at things associated with risk, the scope, the quality, budget is still there, and schedule, obvious, and the resources as well, right? So these are all interesting things that came up, right? And of course, we're still building up here. Some of them we'll revisit them once we start discussing cost and pricing, especially next week. Some of them will come up once we start looking at group dynamics, teamwork and people management, right? If someone is calling in sick consistently, or they're not putting in the required amount of work, what do you do? Well, maybe fire them or something, engage AR and go through the formal process of firing that person, right? Or perhaps hire additional people, which will mean spending more money. And in fact, rehiring human resource means more money, right? Because the people that you're hiring midway through the project will have to catch up, right? And update themselves on what is actually happening. But these are all interesting things that we discussed when we introduced project management. And then finally, we started our discussion of project planning, right? Where we looked at the various stages of planning. It turns out that there's planning involved when you're bidding for a project, right? So think of the process you went through when you guys were selecting the topics you wanted to work on. Right? That's typically the initial phase. In the real world, it's called the bidding process. You go into the newspaper, in the Daily Mail especially, there are adverts associated with software development projects, especially government projects, right? So if you're a software development firm, you bid for that project. As part of the bidding process, you come up with some sort of document, right? Where you specify things like estimated costs associated with the project if the contract is awarded to you. Right? And we realize that there's different types of planning really involved. You know, so once you win the project bid, obviously you come up with another document, right? Before you start the project, where you have you incorporate more or less like refined requirements, right? Or refined preliminary requirements, and those requirements will set the stage for you conducting the requirements engineering phase or stage, which we'll soon get to. But anyway, we also, more importantly still on planning, we also reminded ourselves that this idea of planning still manifests itself when you actually start developing, for instance. Once you get to the stage where you are testing the software, you need to come up with a plan on how you are going to test the software. How are you going to unit test the different modules associated with the software? How are you going to plan for acceptance testing, right? So planning still manifests itself, right? Over and over again, over and over again. And then also, we realize that another crucial aspect of planning is to do with documentation. Nobody likes writing documentation. It turns out it's important, though. One of the very first documents that you guys are going to write, by the way, is a proposal document, which is coming very soon, right? And we discussed this. It's all part of the planning process, yeah? Surprise, surprise. Where are you? Oh, yeah, proposal planning. What was there? Probably not. Proposal planning. Yeah, anyway. Startup planning. Yeah, there we go, proposal planning. So you're going to have to write a project proposal very soon. It is separate, and that's the thing that has a considerable number of marks, actually. By the way, right, for those characters that have been asking, oh no, PNG, Project Libre can't I'm going to have to laugh here, right? I'm putting certain people on the spot here because I think it's funny coming from the third year. Oh, but how do we convert to a PNG, right? Really? At third year, you want to be taught how to convert from one format to the other? Come on, let's be serious here. I would wager that half my first years would be able, half the first years I work with this year would be able to convert from one format to the other. Come on. If you're unable to do it using these more, I guess, esoteric ways like specific applications, screenshot. Lighton just got a screenshot just now. So you're in Project Libre, right? Project Libre, and you have your timeline. And Lighton, and the assignment says, this thing has to be a PNG. What's stopping you from just getting a screenshot of this? Screenshot. Lighton just did a screenshot. Set the screenshot, right? Set the screenshot. Go to wherever it is you're saving the screenshot. Crop it however you want to and make it look beautiful. Obviously, it has to be professional, right? So that it provides the illusion that you actually use the sophisticated tool or something. What's stopping you from doing this? I am really very disappointed with some of these things that I find it funny, actually, right? I find it so funny because I think I have an idea of what's happening here. It's a question of one person wanting to do the work, right? You want to, and I know it's human nature, you always want to get credit for doing something, right? You have 5 people as part of the project, but you want to do the work yourself, right? To show that you are the main man, right? I suffered from that affliction myself, right? You want to show off that you're the main man, you know everything. Yes, we know you know everything, but it's a group effort, right? Do it as a group. If you're struggling with something, raise it as part of the group discussion. How can we do this? Sometimes it might mean redistributing roles, right? The 2 of you or the 3 of you go and look up how we can convert from PDF to PNG. It's easy, by the way, right? There are tools you can use. Yeah. What am I doing here? Anyway, I'll show you how easy it is. I'll go to, I don't know what I'm even doing here, but just because it came up here, I guess we should do this. This is very trivial. I don't know why we're even wasting time on this, right? But I guess sometimes we have to waste time. So you have where are you? You have something like this, right? This is what you, oh, it's not there. Demo. So you have a document like this, and you want to convert it. This is what you export from Project Libre. I mean, the tools out there online. All you have to do is search, convert PDF to PNG. Because I already searched myself, I'm a diligent human being. I just say convert PDF to PNG. And then I have access to this thing, this image that I need, right? I'll just go to this directory here, and I'll find that image. Can't be that hard. This is a search that will take you seconds to do. Seconds to do, and you have your, and that's not the correct thing here. Seconds to do, and you have, this is, I should go up here. And you have this, right? Something that you can later on import. And by the way, it's looking like this because the idea behind PNG, by the way, is at some stage, the document of yours that you're creating, is going to have to be created in a format such as a word processor, right? If it's a word processor, at some stage you're going to have to insert these artifacts that you're creating. I am trying to help you to get started in case you haven't figured that out, so that when the time comes for you to import these things in your document, it's a lot easier. Just dump it in your document like this. This is the point. It turns out that there are no explicit marks associated with you creating those PNG documents. Of course, we're going to check that you're doing these things. But if you look at the mark distribution, the mark distribution is going to go to the proposal document. These things that we're working towards are baby steps to get us to the stage where we're able to get a hang of what's going on. We look at the bigger picture. And I know at the beginning it will sound like, why is he forcing us to use Slack? Why is he forcing us to submit PNG files? Well, I'm trying to make your life a lot easier because very soon you're going to want these things, right? So anyway, so we went through scheduling stages of planning where we said the proposal document, right? I'm aware of the time here. I'm just going to cruise because it's just a rundown of things you've already read. For those that are bored, I'm sorry, but I just thought we'd just we'll just talk about the summary of what was discussed in the notes, right? And then we introduced this whole notion of plan-driven development, which we discovered is mostly associated to the traditional software development model. It's important for us because it's going to set the stage for this proposal we're developing. Obviously, at some stage, once we discuss agile development, we might actually incorporate some aspects of agile development, specifically Scrum in our case, into the overall development process, because we want to leverage rapid application development, for instance, right? But we introduce plan-driven development nonetheless. Remember, though, that this whole notion of plan-driven development is normally associated with large-scale projects that require you to come up with a comprehensive initial plan before you embark on the project. For small-scale projects like what you're working on, an agile approach is fine, right? And then finally, we started our discussion of scheduling, where, I mean, I kind of thought it was a bit unnecessary for us to do, but I spent a bit of time, and in certain instances, really, I was catching fish for you. Like, I don't know why I created that screencast showing you how to use a software tool, right? And I know people are bored. We're like, why is he showing us how to create a Gantt chart in Project Libre? I just thought some people would find that helpful, useful, right? And also, I just thought those that want to adopt Project Libre would actually use that screencast as a basis to try and explore other nice features. That will soon come in handy once you're estimating costs. For instance, very soon we're going to have to start estimating costs. How do you estimate costs? You identify people that are going to work as part of the project. How do you do that? You define resources, right? A key resource are people working on the project. People working on the project, right? And all these things, it turns out when you're using Project Libre, is a lot easier, right? So you come up with people working on the project, and in a real world setting, what you do actually is you even specify rates, because the programmers that you hire are not going to be paid the same amount. Some are more expensive. The more qualified and more experienced programmers will tend to be more expensive. So resource planning is a key part of project management. Why? because this will help you estimate how much you're going to have to charge for a project. Somebody asks you, how much can you charge to develop this piece of software? Well, you're going to have to identify the resources associated with the project. How many programmers you're going to charge? What sort of licenses you're going to have to, I guess, subscribe to, for instance. If there are tools that require you to purchase a license, you need to incorporate them. For instance, if you are crazy enough to want to use Microsoft Project, that would be a resource, but the type of resource is, it's a material, it's not a human being, right? So these are all important things to think about. So that at an advanced stage, when you're monitoring the project and you come to your Gantt chart, right, you can easily assign human beings to these projects, right? You assign yourselves to these projects. This is the essence of project management. So we know that this particular task has been assigned to Mwewa. You understand what's happening here? Hopefully all these things are making sense, and you're beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel here, which you must, by the way, before we get to an advanced stage, right? All right, so, but before we actually looked at scheduling here, like crazy things like network diagrams, right? And by the way, we're using the CPM approach here, right? So online, I'm sure you've come across the, is it the AON approach, right? There's the AON approach where you have the activity or node, right? In certain instances. I don't know if you've come across this when you're reading online, where you say, I say network diagram, AON. So there's the activity on network, activity on node, right? And then there's activity on edge or something, right? So where you define the structure sometimes that you come up with would have, the activity diagram that you come up with would be circular and not boxes, right? I don't know if you've come across, has anybody come across that whilst reading? I don't know if people are even reading here. I don't.
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. What's the difference between the two? Miss Mlima, we heard you. I want to share, what's the fundamental difference between the two? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so but so there are these different approaches, right? The approach we looked at is the CPM approach. So something that's akin to, and I guess I should have something similar to this. But as you are reading up on literature, you realize that there are certain activity networks that are represented not like this. This is the approach we use, right? CPM model. But some network diagrams are typically represented like so. Doesn't matter, right? It turns out that the most commonly used one is this, by the way. These are things that you want to take a note of as you are reading, right? Compare and contrast between some of the things that we are looking at and what you're finding in the notes, because it turns out that if this was a full-fledged project management course, we're probably going to go in depth and look at things like PMBOK, right? Project Management Board of Knowledge. We're going to go into depth, but we're not. We're just looking at the key important parts that are going to help us manage these small little projects we're working on. All right, great. So we also introduced this whole notion of work breakdown structures, which is really fundamental for us because very soon, we're going to have to develop this project proposal document, which in part will need to have this work breakdown structure, right? Tasks, activities broken down to the task level, not the small little task to say we are going to meet on this day, we're going to meet on this week. No. We are specifically making reference to that key thing associated with a WBS, and specifically it's the work package, right? So you must make sure that all these things that you're breaking down are broken down to the work package. Otherwise, you have a more complex Gantt chart, which really wouldn't make sense. So break them down to the work package. All right, and then another reminder, if you want to interrupt me, feel free to interrupt me. And then finally, we discussed this Gantt chart and activity networks, right? This is really, I guess, my really hasty way of trying to quickly give you a rundown of what we discussed, right, in the screencasts that were shared. Hopefully that made sense, right? I would like to think it made sense. It's trivial stuff we're covering here. In certain instances, I took a bit of time to explain what was happening, like the activity network, because it turns out it's important, right? It helps you identify things like...
I have a question.
Oh, yes, please.
Going back to that previous slide with the Gantt chart, um, I know you've categorized them as like T1, T2, T3. Is that chart also necessary? Yeah, that one.
Which chart? This chart here.
Yeah, this one.
No,
So
so
what?
in your proposal, so in your proposal document, what you'll probably once the assignment is circulated, the description will be such that make sure that your proposal document has a Gantt chart.
Oh, yeah, but I'm asking for making the Gantt chart, is that table necessary?
Yes, because
It is.
I'll ask you a question, Mwawa, right? So I'm guessing as part of your, let's say, if you have a separate activity or a summary task in your Gantt chart, or as part of your activities, if you have, let's say, requirements engineering, I'm sure you have a whole range of things under requirements engineering, yes?
Yes.
You're going to have discussions with key stakeholders. You're going to have to write the requirements engineering document. These are all different tasks associated with that summary task. Why am I mentioning these things? Because it turns out that they can be mapped onto quick packages, requirements document, meeting with key stakeholders. That meeting is a milestone, for instance, right? For you to come up with a Gantt chart, you need to come up with an approximation of, well, how long is it going to take you for you to write this requirement document? So, which is why this thing is important. So if you had requirements engineering, and then under requirements engineering, you have meeting with key stakeholders, write requirements document, you need to provide approximate duration of how long it's going to take for you to work towards that task. And so which is why this,
no, actually, what my question is for instance, you've created a Gantt chart. Is it necessary to? I know the Gantt chart itself has durations on it,
yes.
and if you categorize or individualize all the tasks in the Gantt chart, is that chart that divides them into tasks still necessary?
I see what your question. Pause for a little while. Let me switch on the lights. Dark in here. All right. So this is an interesting question. Let me see if I understand your question. You're saying, like looking at this example, for instance, you're saying, is it necessary for you to have phase 1 and phase 2? I don't know if I'm getting.
Sort of. What my point is, if the Gantt chart provides all the necessary information that is also in that other chart, can you leave that chart out? Because let's say the Gantt chart has all the tasks individualized, and it also includes the durations, and yeah, I think that was most of it, and the milestones as well.
Right. So cool question. So this is the thing here. This chart, by the way, that we're talking about for people that aren't following, this would be your work breakdown structure, right? Although this is presented in a tabular manner. Yeah. So to answer your question, Mwewa, the proposal document is going to have a part where you're going to be explicitly told to say include a work breakdown structure. You're going to have to choose as a group. Are you going to represent your work breakdown structure like so? In which case this becomes important, or are you going to represent it like so? Right?
So you have a choice between the two.
Yes, in a work breakdown structure, you have a choice between a visual representation or a tabular representation. Pause for a little while. There's a group of students I worked with when I was a student. Let me do this, and remind me if I don't share this, I should share this as an example at some stage. So when I was a graduate student, I supervised honors projects, a level high up for what you're doing right now, right? It's considered a postgraduate qualification. But let me show you something, right? And I hope I have that as an example. Wow. Does Lighton have that as an example? Yes. Yes. So proposal document for the LEARN project that I helped supervise, right? If you go down, what Lavius and company, right? Really brilliant students, probably one of the smartest group I worked with, right? In the few projects that I helped supervise. If you look at the proposal document, if I scroll down, what they did themselves is they presented their work breakdown structure like so. Table, right? Yeah. Alternatively, what they could have done is they could have represented this in the form of, sorry about that, like this. Where are you? Like so. They could have chosen to do this if they wanted to. So if the assignment to do with the proposal document is going to request that you include the work breakdown structure, you have a choice as a group to say, are we going to do this? Which, by the way, for me would be a lot of work because you'd be creating these diagrams, right? Or if you're creating them manually, or are you going to present it in a tabular manner, right? So hopefully this answers your question. So it depends. So if you look at Laviat and company, right? Work breakdown structure, key tasks, and then they also had their timeline here, Gantt chart, right? Hopefully this makes sense. I will share this. This will be, I guess this, we can use this as an exemplar for like this sort of, because this document, although I mean has certain things that are not going to be included in the proposed document we're working on, but it pretty much gives you an idea of the sort of key things that you're supposed to have in a typical proposal document at this level, at this stage. And in fact, by the way, if you're writing a proposal document in a real world setting, you pretty much come up with a similar document like this. Only if you're bidding for a project, they call it a project charter, not a proposal document. In academia, it's a proposal document, right? In 4014, it will be called a proposal document. In 3020, we're calling it a proposal document. Hopefully in 2034, they call it a proposal document. In the real world, it's called a project charter. And a project charter in the real world can be as simple as just a summary of what the project is about, right? Just visuals in certain instances. So this is what we're going to be working towards. And you notice here, these documents that I'm telling you, these things I'm telling you to create are going to be useful because you're just going to plug them into this document. Oh, proposal document must have Gantt chart. Oh, okay, Lighton, we'll just create an appendix section, come to appendix section, plug it in. It's here. Oh, work breakdown structure. Oh, okay, Lighton, I'll just insert the table in here, right? So I hope that answers your question, Mwewa, right? Does it?
Yes, it does.
Great, thanks. All right, so we went through a lot here, right? And project scheduling, and I spent time on certain things like the activity network here, because I want you to understand how you can get to compute things like the project duration. And more importantly, right, if you look at some parts that we looked at here, if I can move down to the network diagram, I thought it was important because you can easily compute the slack values associated with your project. This is going to be useful for you guys. Why? Because once you get to a stage, midway through the project, you get to a stage where you realize, whoa, guys, we will not finish this project. We will not finish this project. What do? You start computing the slack values. And you'd have computed the slack values way before, right? So I was trying to showcase to you how you compute these slack values, right? And how you identify the important parts of your projects, critical parts. These are the tasks that you must not, which must not go beyond time, because once you exceed the allocated time, that's it, bye-bye. The project is going to go beyond the deadline, right? All right, guys, so maybe now we can, I guess this was a good enough summary of what was discussed in the screencast, and hopefully once you read up online and did a bit of research, all these things were making sense, right? We are doing all of this to set the stage for the part to do with pricing and estimation, before we transition to discussing people management and teamwork, at which point we would have wrapped up lecture series number 3. I apologize, this was supposed to be tagged as lecture series number 3. Great, so I'm aware of the time here, bundles and whatnot, but quick question. Any concerns about the resources? Are they sufficient? Do you want more slides, more resources, links, comments to do with the resources that have been shared, formats and whatnot? Have you noticed something that is being done in, let's say, 3010 that you like, that Lighton should incorporate into here? Have you seen something that is being done in 3030 that you like, that you want Lighton to introduce into 3020? This is what I'm referring to when I'm saying comment on feedback on resources. Have you seen something that is being done in your other minor courses that Lighton is not doing that you'd want incorporated into this course? This is what this slide is meant for. So I'll ask again, are there comments to do with the resources that are currently being shared on the Moodle? The format, how they're being shared? Is the pace fast enough? Is this too fast for you? Is it too slow? Do you want us to accelerate the pace? Do you want us to slow down a little? Right, so comments. Maybe let's start with comparison with other courses. Are there things that are being done elsewhere that you want to introduce in the course?
I think for me personally, the course is because most of my other courses aren't even really like operational. So like maybe there's an assignment that we just have to complete, but otherwise there are no resources. So for me personally, it's okay.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Any other comments about the resources? Because we can do more. There's plenty of resources out there. You see, the role I'm playing here, and you soon realize this, because what happens in life, and it's going to happen very soon, for certain people, it happens at a very early stage, right? Maybe by third year, you get to develop an art for finding resources on your own, right? For some of you, maybe by the time you're getting to fourth year, you become better than your lecturers. This is what typically happens in life, right? And that's what I'm aiming for myself. What the role I'm playing here is I'm playing the role of a guide where I'm trying to put you on the path where you'll be able to figure things out at a very fast rate, right? So these resources I'm sharing, I know will be very helpful in guiding you, putting you on the correct path. There's a wealth of resources out there, so it's very easy for you to get lost, right? So the critical role I see myself playing here is one of the guide. If you've watched Dante's Inferno, I don't know if you have, right? Divine Comedy, I'll be like Virgil, right? I'm guiding you through how many circles of hell are there, right? I'm guiding you through those circles of hell, and at some point I'll let you go. You'll be able to find your own way. So I'm just playing the role of the guide. So if you notice that there are certain things that are not very helpful in trying to guide you on the right path, you must let me know. We are learning, so you must let me know to say, this is not making a lot of sense. Do you suppose you have more resources about this? And I know sometimes maybe my tone when I'm responding to comments in the mail will be like intimidating, right? That's fine, it's part of learning, right? And I'm sorry for that if you feel offended, but life is like that sometimes, right? It's nothing personal, right? Don't take it personal. It's part of the learning process, right? So, but any other comments to do with the resources, right?
Dr. Piri, there's a message in the message dialogue from
Okay.
Chileshe Mulenga, who says that more resources, something like that. But I personally, my other courses, my minor course, like Mulenga said, we are not doing much. They post an assignment, we get it done, and we post back. That's about it. But I watch all your YouTube videos, almost all, and I feel like personally the resources are enough. I probably have.
Thank you. I mean, so if you want more resources, I can give you more resources. But turns out, right, and I'm keeping a close watch on what you guys are doing. One of the reasons why I slowed down is because people are not accessing the resources, right? And I know.
You've muted yourself.
Thanks for that. So I've been putting a close watch on you guys. I know that you're not accessing the resources. You probably claim, more resources, but you're not. You're not reading those things. With a few people, a few exceptions, you're not. I was giving a third years at the first year interaction yesterday. I was telling them to say, if I start looking at the resources, you have like less than 20% of the class accessing the resources, right? With the exception of things that they consider important, like assessments. Everything else is just 20%. People are just not engaging. Nothing at all here, right? And if you want, if you have time, I can pull the logs to show you what I mean right now, right? To show you that the vast majority of the people in class are actually not engaging with the course, right? So I'll dump resources there, but I'll give you an example of the most recent resource, I guess. I'll dump resources on Moodle, but very few are engaging with the resource. And I know, right? I know because we track these things. So I'll go to the course and then I'll just go to the logs. You're not reading, right? And by the way, if you're not reading, once you are assessed on this thing, it's going to be a bit of an issue for you. You have problems, right? I'll go to the most recent assessment, for instance. Let's look at demonstration for creating a Gantt chart, right? And I'll check how many people are accessing this. Look at this. This is it. I'll download this, right? And I know maybe you can say, maybe some of them didn't find this useful. Yeah, maybe, that's fine. But I'm just trying to give you an idea of what's actually happening, right? The fact that very few people access, look at this. Only a handful of you. And in fact, it's very few because some of these are just repetitions, right? If you look at the names here, these are repetitions. You know, so I mean, you sit there and claim more resources. Jesus, come on, right? More resources, fine. More resources. Let's see what you're doing, right? I don't. Let's see how many people are actually accessing these things, right? My God, this is quite funny, really. I find it very funny actually because I'll just count, and I wish there was a way of counting unique here, but maybe I guess there isn't. I guess there isn't, but I think there is a way of counting unique if I go to what was introduced to us in Edu 1020 is back, right? This is much easier, I guess. You guys are not engaging with this course. And I worry because some of these things that we're discussing are coming in the tests, right? There are tests to be written, and there are marks allocated to those tests. So you could get away by being a leech, right? You say, my colleagues will do the smart ones will do work for you, or the ones that are diligent, because you're lazy, the ones that are diligent will do the work for you. So you just sit there, right, and relax at work and just browse Instagram and whatever. But the time is coming very soon when, let me just see if I can count unique. Look at this, 12 people only have accessed that demonstration site. And if you want, we can do much more actually. Let's actually look at, maybe you claim, okay, maybe this was the screencast, no, but let's look at how many people are actually accessing, bothered to download the notes, the PDF document, right? And I know there are some characters that have not done this. I know because I keep a close watch on these things. And this is probably going to take a little bit of time because it's much larger here. And by the way, these stats that I'm showing you are part of the reason why I'm saying I've decided to slow down, because I know that maybe some people, maybe this whole argument of load shedding and bundles could be genuine. I don't know, but I don't know how genuine it is if this file is just, what, 10 megabytes? How large is this file? How large is this file? Check for you, right? 14 megabytes. The slides are just, well, I'll go to lecture slide number 3. Come on. 5. This thing is just 5 megabytes, right? So if it's 5 megabytes, why? This is funny, really. I find this very funny. It's disappointing, quite frankly speaking, because if you knew what other people elsewhere in the world do, right? If you knew how seriously take these things, you'd feel sorry for yourselves, right? If you knew how hard they work, you'd feel very sorry for yourself. You'd actually feel, you'd be ashamed of yourselves. People at your level do serious things, not this stuff we are doing is nothing, right? But let's look at the notes, right? Let's look at what people are doing here. How many people have accessed the notes? Yeah? We'll count unique. These are not unique, these are duplicates, because there's some people that will access the notes multiple times, but we want unique entries. Come on. Yeah, 42 of you. Only 42 people in class have downloaded the notes. 42. Out of how many people? Currently, the current number of registered students, in case you don't know, right, is 70. 70 people are registered for the course, but only 42 have bothered to access the notes. 60%. What's the rest of the 40% doing? But anyways, so this is one of the reasons why I've slowed down slightly. We could have probably, by now, we were supposed to be, not probably, the plan, if you remember, if you bookmark the course calendar, right, you'd have realized that, if I can find the course calendar here, sorry. Yeah, by now, and I'll unmute some of these courses, I don't need them, some of these calendars. By now, we should have done what? We should have been covering, this week, we should have been covering risk management, people management, and teamwork. But I've slowed down because people are not accessing these resources, right? So thanks for the feedback. Anyway, those of you that have shared the feedback. Now comes the, I don't know, some of you have already asked questions, but are there any other random questions to do with the notes though? The assignment maybe. Hello? Oh, yes.
I have a
Why is
question.
it that only just one person is asking questions when you have plenty of people? Oh, I
Yeah.
think they've left when you have 13. Yes, no.
Oh, okay, so it's concerning the assignment, and I was trying to make the well, anyway, I was trying to outline all the tasks we were supposed to do, and I was wondering if there's any kind of like documentation that happens before the actual proposal document that can be included during the scheduling part.
No, for now, not quite. No. So most of the artifacts that you were told to include or to generate, like the WBS, the activity network, the Gantt chart, those are the artifacts that you typically include in your proposal document. I'm going to pause for a little while here. I'm going to take you to this sample honors project that I shared with you. If you look at the things that they have here, the other aspects that you're going to include are things like risk management, right? So you identify the risks, you identify the mitigation strategies that you come up with. And this is again going to come up once we discuss risk management, right? At this stage, we will probably not force you to come up with these, what do you call this? These design artifacts, right? Like the logical design of how you view your system to be. Right? At this stage, this particular proposal is coming from honors students who had already done software engineering, they had already done advanced software engineering, so they already knew how to come up with these design artifacts. So at this stage, no, there's nothing else that will be included as part of your proposal document, really. The artifacts that you've been told to come up with should be sufficient, at least insofar as scheduling is concerned. Risk management is a completely different component. So if I can scroll down to the part where these guys talk about risk, perhaps, I hope these guys did. I mean, obviously, it'll be a part where you just give us preliminary requirements associated with the document. Why? Because you've already been given an idea of what the system is supposed to be like. So you would have to do that. But so you see, these guys, they came up with risks as well. We discussed risk very soon, and they have a very nice table with the risk they identified and the priority allocated to the risk. You know, mitigation plans that they have, how they plan to monitor the risk, right, and how they manage to reduce the risk and whatnot. So besides what has been introduced to us so far in terms of scheduling is concerned, no, nothing else. Okay, I'm wary of the time, and I know bundles are always a concern. People are leaving here, but are there any other comments to do with the assignment? On slowing down, is Friday too soon? Do you want us to extend this? Because maybe something has come up during our discussion that you want to incorporate and discuss as a group. Do you want us to extend the deadline of the assignment?
No, I think you should extend it because, like for my group, Peter was supposed to do something and now he's in hospital, but we're still working on the other side. So, and plus what we've learned now, I think more time would be okay, or extending the due date for the assignment.
Unfortunate that Peter is sick, but hopefully you've learned a thing. Very soon this issue of risk will come up. So what you want to do is whenever if you are splitting up tasks, right? And that's a whole different strategy here. When you're scoping the project before the proposal, you want to make sure that the tasks are done collectively as a group, specifically for reasons that, reasons associated with what happened to Peter here. Or at the very least, what you want to do is if you're splitting up tasks, make sure that at least two people are working on that same task. Why? If one person is sick, if one person is unable to do the task, the other one can easily take over. And we discussed that on risk. So this example project I was showcasing here, the way it's done is even if it's a group project, but what the students do is the project, eventually the report that they write is based on individual components that eventually have to be integrated with each other. Precisely because of that. Midway through the year, a student will probably leave the course, they register, right? you decide to quit. What do you do then, right? Risk management. Okay, we'll change the deadline. This will be extended until next. It will be extended until Wednesday. I think Wednesday is good enough. Is Wednesday fine?
Yeah, Wednesday is okay.
Fine. Then let it be known. It's been put on record that assignments will be extended until Wednesday. So you have until Wednesday to do the assignments. Any other comments, questions to do with the assignment before we close? I'm looking at the time, and I don't want people to leave. I don't want a lot of people to leave. We had a number of people, but we have 13 now.
So I wanted to find out on the network activity diagram, what tool did you use in the lecture notes for them to view like the way they were?
I used the tool that was introduced to you in EDU 1020. And if you don't believe me, Hawkins, I will go down to, because I know seeing is believing, right? I used the tool that was introduced to you in EDU 1020. This is it. This is Google Slides, by the way. You can do this in Microsoft Word, but I was using, because these are slides, I was just using Google Slides, and these are tables, actually. So I came up with these blocks, and then I'll just putting in there. Can you see? Can you see? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
I was using, I was using Google Slides, but you can use Microsoft Word if you want to. In fact, if you decide to use Google Slides, right? Google Slides is a very powerful tool. Observe. What you could do is you can use fancy features like, observe. If you say just insert, and I'll insert a chart, and then not a chart, I'll insert a diagram. You have a whole range of diagrams, Hawkins. Whole range of diagrams. One of the diagrams is a hierarchy. Oh, what type of hierarchy? Oh, I want to use this sort of hierarchy, right? You insert it in there, and these hierarchies you can create in Microsoft Word, by the way, as well. You can insert these charts. You insert the hierarchy. Once you insert that hierarchy, then you start making these changes here. This is easy, and then you start editing. You can edit these however you want to edit them, right? If you don't want to use tables. But I used tables. Simple. A table that has
All right, sir. Thank you. I thought we're restricted to the projects,
Libre. Well,
tools
yeah,
you introduced us to.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so if you want to, well, it turns out you can do this in Project Libre if you do it carefully, actually. Observe, Project Libre, file is the default tab, go to task. After task, surprise, surprise, network, right? You see this network tab, network. Isn't this the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can use this if you want to. I mean, but if you want to, for practice purposes, I mean, you can use tables if you are trying to revise this for the test or for assessments that are going to come with the exam or something. You want to be able to work through these things that Lighton was showcasing in here. But otherwise, you can generate this using a network, using Project Libre. It's a powerful tool. It's a project management tool. You use it for scheduling, initial planning, and monitoring as well. How do you monitor? Observe. If you're monitoring this as a group, right? Gantt chart. And then you're trying to track how much work Mwewa has done. It's as easy as going to the task that Mwewa has done, and then you go to the general task, and then you say Mwewa has completed that task 20% of the time. You say close. I should have saved. I don't know what this is. 20% of the time. Enter. You see this black strip? Hello?
Yes, sir. I can see.
Yeah, so this, you'd be monitoring the project. So you know that, oh, Mwewa was assigned this task and he's done 20% so far, right? It's a powerful tool. Yeah, so the only drawback is that it's a desktop-based application. So once you are making these adjustments, you'd have to share, you'd have to export this, right? So you save as POD, and then you share it with the rest of the project team in your case. And really, this is where the Google Shared Drive becomes important, because you just upload this to the Google Shared Drive, and then everybody has an up-to-date copy of the stage of the project at that point in time. Perhaps you plan to monitor this every week or every month, right? So you adjust it accordingly. You hire a new person, you go to resources, you add that new person, we just hired a new programmer, right? Or maybe not a programmer, but I don't know, right? You say maybe it's a program or something, you hire them there, and then maybe their rate is not pro bono, maybe it's 5 quarts per hour or something, I don't know. It'll be cheap though. But so, and then you assign a task for them, right? This is the whole point of using these project management tools, right? You come to this task, resources, assign task, you come to Dabas and then you assign this, and then you say close, and then Dabas will appear here, right? So you can choose, I mean, write it down manually or use Project Libre to automatically generate this. In fact, so powerful that you can even generate what's called the resource breakdown structure, right? So work breakdown structure, resource breakdown structure. If you have hierarchies in the project team, maybe there's a project lead, there's a senior developer, right? And then there are people that report under senior developer, some crazy thing like that. And this is how like real world projects generally operate, right? Are there any other questions, guys? I'm wary of the time here. We're not supposed to be wasting time on talking about. We've spent more than an hour on this. Are there any other questions?
Just to clarify, sorry, maybe you already mentioned it or mentioned it in the notes, or maybe I just missed it. How are we supposed to access the Project Libre again?
Oh, you download it.
Like you just go on, either I'm using Opera or Chrome, I just search for Project Libre and download it.
Yes, you are, and I know Mutinta. I know. Mutinta is. Let's see. Mutinta is one of those people who did not watch that lecture series. How many people watched that series? I broke down the slide where I walk you through how to download Project Libre and how to actually install it. Yeah, Mutinta is not here. Yeah, so there's
to go through it. I have to check that. I didn't know you posted the video of it.
I do encourage you to go through it because you see, most of the tasks that are coming your way are going to involve that you use some type of project management tool. Now choose. If you want as a group, you can use OpenProd and introduce you to these tools, right? If you want as a group, you can find, I guess, a version of Microsoft Project that you're going to use. Right? But make sure that it's a tool that will enable you to perform all these different tasks associated with project management. Specifically, planning and monitoring. And cost. In a real world scenario, you'd have to have a sense of how much it's going to cost you to run a project. If you're developing this piece of software in a real world, the topics you're working towards, how much do you, how are you going to approximate how much it's going to cost you? You associate costs. Or as a group, we think we're going to go for training. Let's say, what is this? What sort of training? API training. Maybe API training will involve that you travel, it's material. Travel will require money, right? You specify the amount of money. At some stage, you use the project management tool to generate reports, right? You generate reports. And there's a whole range of reports that you generate. Reports to do with information, resources, right? Reports associated with the project details. Reports associated with task information, who does what, and all this crazy stuff that you do. This is what project management is all about. You want to make sure that you have systematic processes and procedures in place so that in the case of software, you produce high quality software within budget and then within the prescribed amount of time. You just cannot do that if you just randomly do things the way people on the streets do, right? We are not selling tomatoes here. We are building software. You just don't build software. You just don't wake up, say, I'm going to write a program, and then you start writing the program. No. You go through a systematic process of planning. This is what we're doing. So, and planning is a lot easier by using a software tool called a project management software application. Now, in closing here to do with project management tool, just go to Wikipedia and say software project management tools. Let's say Wikipedia. You see that there's much more than what Lighton introduced you to in that funny course here. I'm sorry, in that funny slide where I was walking you through Microsoft Project, and there's probably a comparison of tools here. Oh, shoot, no. There we go, comparison of project management software. Very nice table on Wikipedia. All of these are software. This is how important project management is. These are all lists of project management tools that are there. Asana, right? I'm sure Trello is there. Trello is there, right? I'm sure Project Libre is there, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Project Libre is there. Microsoft Project is there, right? And I know Microsoft Team, I have a colleague who works for the central bank. He was telling me these are the tools that they use, sophisticated tools that they use, right? In large organizations. Open Project is here. You cannot do this manually. You must use a tool. And in fact, fundamentally, if you think about it, software engineering is all about tooling, right? So-called computer-aided software engineering tools, case tools, they call them. And very soon you'll realize that this is probably one of those courses where you've been introduced to a broad spectrum of different tools, tools meant for different things. There's a reason why I'm saying use Slack, use Trello, use Project Libre. Very soon I'll say, oh, perhaps use, what is that Atlassian tool that they use? Is it Atlassian itself? Well, it's perfect really if you want to take an agile approach, right? These are all different things that you have to think about. Oh, very soon you'll be saying, how do you start visioning, what do you call it? How do you start visioning, by the way, there's a free tier of Atlassian here. How do you vision control software when you're working as a group, right? Which is why I said there's Git at some point. This is one course where you'll be introduced to a broad spectrum of tools. Why? For you to implement high quality software within time and within budget, you need to use tools that are going to help you achieve that goal. You want to track things. You want to plan, right, guys? Are there any other questions? This is 1820 here. Questions to do with the lecture series number 3, although only a few of you watched the slides.
All right, I have another question on the gunshot. How much information is strictly necessary to put? Because I don't know. I feel like there are some redundancies because
just the key word here is think of work packages associated with a different task. So, for instance, if you have an analysis stage, right, you're obviously going to say write proposal or present proposal. These are things that you need to include. But you don't want to write things like write a software module that's going to do this, develop an API. Enough detail to give a comprehensive idea of what the project is about. Another guide is you want to avoid a Gantt chart that is going to be cluttered, right? You want something that is that you can visually understand. If you look at what these guys did here, right? Just enough details to I guess convey a message to say these are the key things we're going to work on as a project. You understand what I mean? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't overdo it. But listen, there's nothing like doing too much. You're always better off doing too much, but doing too much again doesn't help. You don't want your Gantt chart to span multiple pages. Just one page is good enough. One page that includes all the key summary tasks, right? Don't come up with a Gantt chart that just has 3 items, right? You say 4 items. You say, oh no, it's requirements engineering, design, implementation, testing, and deployment. Well, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense here. Okay. Yes, you're about to say something else.
Yes, I also wanted help with how do you determine which task has a predecessor, because I was looking at some of the sample charts, and yeah, some of them have predecessors, but others don't.
Yes, so this is the thing. There are some tasks or some activities that are going to have predecessors, some of them won't. So a good exercise to do as a group is, and hopefully you do this in your Slack workspaces, as you are doing this, ask yourselves, is this task going to require that we do something else before? Obviously, we know that you cannot design piece of software before you collect the requirements. You cannot implement before you design. Within those specific summary tasks, right? You know that you can come up with a high-level design, right? A conceptual design of your artifact. You can come up with this. You can come up with a high-level, I guess, a high-level design of how the different moving parts, high-level architectural diagram like this. You can come up with this. At the same time, you can also come up with a database design, because it turns out that this structure has little to do with the AR design that you're going to come up with. So, but I know that's just a random example here. I don't know if you've, or have you started database? The databases in 2010. That's one of the first topics, right? I think you have, right?
This is one who started it.
Okay, yeah. So this is the thing, right? So, and by the way, like I said, that's a companion course, right? Pay attention there; it will come in handy. So ask yourselves as in the group, right? Because you've been given more time here, maybe to give people an opportunity to do the right thing. I will extend the submission until Friday. Some people are sick, and then I want this to be done perfectly, right? Because you don't get marks for the artifacts, but you will get marks from the proposal itself. You will lose marks for not doing this, because you're getting marks for these things that are going to be put in the proposal, and because it appears people are a bit confused. Hopefully this interaction has helped uncover shortfalls or gaps in what you did. I'll extend it until Friday next week, right? So ask yourselves, find time and ask yourselves, is this task going to require that we first of all work on this other task? If it does, then you know that it's a dependency. It's a simple exercise. And in certain instances, right, guys, you won't get it right the first time. It's not about being perfect. You are planning. This is the initial plan. Remember a key thing about planning. I have to go back here because people didn't read this, right? Key thing about planning is, where are you? Key thing about planning is you constantly, do people remember key thing about planning? Probably not. I'll have to get back to planning to remember, to remind people.
Changes.
Yes, thank you very much. Very important aspect here. Let's see if I can. I don't know where I made mention of that fact here, but maybe I didn't. You know, I hope I did. Doesn't. Ah, there we go. So the reason you are constantly making changes is you won't get it right the first time, and the reason you don't get it right the first time is because things are still hazy at the beginning. Very soon, though, you get to a stage where you fully understand what's going on, in which case you constantly refine the plan, right? Key thing here, right? All right, any other questions, guys, before we wrap up here? Yeah, remember this, guys. Always remember this, is very important. Any other questions before we part ways? We've covered, this is unusual. No need to have 2 hours worth of interaction. Doesn't make sense. If there are no comments, then let's just wrap up this thing. Where are we? Okay, great. So next up here, just remind us that pending units here, I'll give you time to work through the assignments, but at some point next week, I'll share the remaining parts of the project planning, screencast, risk management, people management, teamwork, and then I'll also adjust our schedule on the calendar here. So if you haven't bookmarked the calendar, make sure that you bookmark it. This will change, right? Okay. All right. So anyway, just to let you know that if you're one of those people who are complaining about zero rating of content, access to bundles, I don't know how many of you are aware MTN has zero rated access to Moodle. What we're thinking of doing is making sure that we contact ICT to see if we can start dumping some of these videos on Moodle so that when you're accessing the videos, you can download them for free. But remember that it's just on the MTN network. We had an interesting talk from someone in a different course, someone from Zamtel, in a postgraduate course that we're involved with. And they were saying Zamtel is actually planning to do something similar. So very soon, hopefully, this issue of bundles will not be used as an excuse. Human beings like coming up with excuses, right? In closing, are there any random things you want to chat about? I hope you're keeping safe, keep yourself busy. A lot of temptations when you are bored, right? make sure you keep yourself busy here. Are there any other random things you thought you wanted to, before we close? I'm about to go here. Okay, if there's nothing else, thanks to the 11 that remained until the very end. This recording is going to be shared. Yes, hi, Ms. Matong.
Oh, I'm just saying, oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having us.
All right, great. Right, so tell your colleagues this thing is going to be shared as usual. The link will be available on the Moodle, so if somebody wants to play it back at their own convenience, they can do that, I guess. I don't know. I'll leave you to your gossip, I guess. You're saying, I don't know what you're talking about, I've forgotten, but you can continue with the gossip. I'll hang up now. Thanks. And please, let's continue the conversations via the mailing list. Bye and take care. Thank you.
You too, sir.